Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Life Investigated podcast today on this 31st of May, 2024. And we are investigating corrupt judges and why they remain on the bench. Certainly, the farce that has been going on in New York with Trump and the criminal case that he was convicted of 34 counts yesterday. Um, Only after 12 hours of deliberation by a jury for such a potentially nation shaking event. And then the civil trials that have been going on that are just beyond uh, jokes. I don't even really know how to describe what's been going on. But this podcast is not really about Trump, it's about the corrupt judicial system that is allowed to be toyed with really by politicians and those in power that have money and actually run the country and the world. We are still under the mistaken fallacy that we, the people, still have a voice in what goes on. And that hasn't just happened recently. This has been a build-up really since the inception of this country, quite frankly, if we would be honest about it. Excuse me. So, but where is part of the underlying problem? There are so many problems here. It would take forever, really. We could go on for weeks debating and discussing and giving facts and opinions about things such as this. But where's the really root of the problem? You know, back in 2020 and the summer of love and all the uprisings and different things like that, where the leftists and the communists kind of got a stronghold there, and the normal working everyday American just cowered under a mask with COVID and acted like a puppet, like the government told you to do, and you allowed a foothold to uh, take root in this nation. Not, I mean, it already had a root, I would suppose to say, but it started to grow and the roots started to get larger and larger and get a better foundation. And thus we have the results of it now. So we could go on and on about the Trump trial. One thing that we can see that brings out a problem is the corrupt judges that have presided over these cases. All of them so far have been known leftist judges. Their political affiliation is with the leftist Democratic Party, the leftist, especially the left wing of the Democrat Party. I don't believe all Democrats are actually leftists, but you certainly have allowed your party to be taken away from you. I can tell you that. Um, Obviously, the jury. Come on now, those jurors said they were impartial, but let's be realistic. Maybe two or three may have been had some common decency not to make a pre-decision before they came in there, even though they lied and said they had not. Most of them had already made their mind up because most of them are left-leaning individuals that would be aligned with the left-leaning Democratic Party. And certainly the judge was. And we've seen numerous times where this man, Trump, his due process rights have been degraded or not recognized at all. Now, what I am saying is, although this has serious consequences for all of us as Americans and really potentially the world, Donald Trump's not the first man that's had his due process rights denied by a judge. Okay, it happens actually all the time. After 44 years of being involved within the criminal justice system in one capacity or another, I have seen many misguided decisions and misguided judges and just wrong decisions made by the courts, by the judges, and even by overzealous prosecutors. Yes, prosecutors like to make a name for themselves. They want to get reelected. They want to get promoted to higher offices sometimes. So some of these prosecutors really don't really care so much about a man's due process rights as they do their rights and their entitlement they feel that they have for their office. But the subject matter is not really the district attorneys or Commonwealth attorneys today. It is the corrupt judges. Over my years being involved with the criminal justice system, I have seen it time and time again. Uh, and I'm going to take you to a Reuters investigation from back in 2020. And this is the title of their investigation or their article as a result of their investigation. Thousands of U.S. judges who broke laws or oaths remained on the bench. And I'm just going to read a paragraph here of their article. In the past dozen years, state and local judges have repeatedly escaped public accountability for misdeeds that have victimized thousands. 9 of the 10 kept their jobs, a Reuters investigation found, including an Alabama judge who unlawfully jailed hundreds of poor people, many of them black, over traffic fines. Now, I've read through the article and I haven't researched every judge that they pointed out. Uh, Now, there was obviously, even in this article, there were some left leaning ideologies in there, but they're not actually wrong about the way they presented a lot of this investigation in this article. So, why are judges not held accountable? When, again, referring back to 2020 and the great summer of love and the all the outrage from both the left and the mediocre right, who said, you know, about the George Floyd situation, blah 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 blah. George Floyd was a criminal with numerous criminal charges, numerous times that he resisted a lawful arrest, on and on and on. Autopsy showed, by the way, that he didn't die by the knee of that police officer. Okay. So it's funny how both Democrats and the mediocre Republican Party that is seated now, how they can just forget what true facts are. You know, the facts and the evidence, the real evidence, is what a man or a woman is supposed to be tried on in a impartial court of law. Whether it's a bench trial, that judge is expected to be impartial. That judge is not supposed to, in his or her decisions, have any proclivity to lean either way, except for looking at the evidence and the facts of the case, ensuring that a person's constitutional rights are met. Well, we have seen that has been thrown out the window, certainly in the Trump trials, but it's not the first time it's happened. It's the first time it's happened to someone of the stature of Donald Trump. So here we go. I can recall in my time in this field, early on, my first job in law enforcement, there was a judge that was a functioning alcoholic. There is no doubt in my mind, looking at, even as a young officer, going into his courtroom on a regular basis, some days seeing the difference in his demeanor and his his objectivity and how he ran his courtroom. And I began thinking, what's up with this guy? Well, I noticed that when I would be working the day shifts, when later in the evenings when court was over with, just outside of town, his vehicle would be parked on the side of the road on top of a little mountain going down to the country club there, I believe, where he may have resided or may not have. I'm not sure. Don't remember really. Uh, his vehicle parked beside the road. And I can remember calling in, getting ready to go and check on his honor, make sure, everything was okay, and getting a call back from the sergeant saying, disregard, go on about your way, basically leave the judge alone. So when I questioned that, I know anybody that knows me finds it amazing that I would actually question anything or anybody. I was told in no uncertain terms that he pretty much takes his fifth or whatever and takes care of it before he gets home after every court. You leave him alone. If you want your job, leave him alone. Do not check on him, and do not ever think that you will arrest him or the tables will be turned. So corruption with judges has been around since, well, judges were invented. Okay. We can even look way back into the Old Testament when the Hebrews were governed by judges. We see a lot of righteous judges, but we see even corrupt judges then. We see things that went wrong. And why is that? Here's the deal. Judges are human beings. They have fallibilities. They have the same fallibilities that you and I have. They suffer the same temptations that you and I suffer, just like every other man or woman walks the face of this earth. They deal with their flesh, they deal with their shortcomings. The only problem is they have authority over men. So we talk about law enforcement all the time and the reform that needs to be in law enforcement and those dirty cops. And the cops did this and the cops did that. Yeah, there are dirty cops out there. Surprise, 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 right? But what profession is there not corruption in? Is what I would like to ask you. However, I realize when a man or a woman is in a position of authority and they are not exercising that authority fairly and equitably, and I've seen it in law enforcement, but I promise you, I've seen it on the bench. I've seen decisions made that left me flabbergasted, both on the fact what a outrageous sentence that judge just gave this poor person. When I say poor, I don't necessarily mean in the pocketbook. Just the fact that they have just suffered an unjust judgment. Or I've seen other times, especially with popularity, like especially if it was a Virginia Tech football player or something like that, or somebody of great influence in whatever the controlling political party of the county or city or state was at that point in time. I've seen other people that should have been thrown under the jail get the proverbial slap on the wrist and say, "You were such a bad little boy. I hope you will learn from this by doing 5 hours of community service at the soup kitchen or whatever." Usually it was a community service of their choice, which they would have served in their own organization or something. So, yes, there are corrupt judges. The national trial here of a former president and the president the man that is the nominee for the Republican Party, or soon will be, but he is it, who's going to run for president again, has now been hindered from his due process and his rights to run for president. I didn't say it was stopped. I believe he'll probably go on full steam, or at least as much as possible. And I think the one thing that Trump has done wrong, he has underestimated his enemies. He underestimated how dirty, and I think he did this as president too. He underestimated how dirty politics really is. He underestimated how corrupt Washington, D.C. really is while he was president. That's why they were able to commit all the crimes that they committed during the election. Not him, the communist socialist party that was running the election. So, and he still underestimated them, in my opinion. I think it's time for Mr. Trump to get the realization, if he hasn't, that this is life or death for him. And quite frankly, it may very well be life or death for this country now that it's involved a person on the executive level of this nation, past executive of this nation, potentially the future executive of this nation. Again, the dynamics have greatly changed. We have seen there's nothing we can do with these judges. So back to the Reuters article, just real quick, and I will close out here. They asked the question, why are the oversight boards that control the judges not taking action against them? Whether it be the legislative body or an appointed governmental board that's over these judges. Why? So the Reuters article was questioning, why? Why are they still on the bench? And why, when they even did get some kind of recompense against them, it was the slap on the wrist. Here's why. Number one, politics are still at play. Number one, politics are still at play. Number two reason, the people on the oversight boards or the legislative bodies that control the judges realize this, or they used to realize this, that when common everyday Joes, American citizens' faith is so destroyed in the judicial system, you will eventually lose all matter of law and order. They realize that when people start disrespecting and disregarding the entity of law, the entity of the court, and the entity of the power that it represents, that you will have anarchy. These folks realize that. So what do? It's wrong, but what do? In order to try to preserve some matter of law and order and some matter of integrity for at least the good and the just judges to operate under, they sweep some things under the rug. Because if out of the thousands of judges, how at federal, state, and local, I don't know how many there are in this country, if we had a mass arrest or a mass exodus of expelling judges from their bench by the governing authorities, then the general public's going to say, well, then who can we depend on? Who am I? How am I ever going, even if a false accusation is made against me, which that's part of where due process is supposed to come in, how can I defend myself if I automatically know I'm going in front of a corrupt judicial system? So they hide it. They sweep it under the rug to keep some semblance of law and order. That's why. That's why the two reasons the judges are still on the bench. Politics, connections, favor, money, which I put them all in the same circle of politics. And then the perception of we have absolute chaos in this land. And we are actually pretty close to chaos. Whether any of you left-leaning pundits want to admit it or not, and whether you want to make excuses or not, you are apparently on the Soros payroll, and you just have your head in the sand, man. That's all I can say. You're not seeing what you hate Donald Trump so bad, I guess. You can't really see the truth. that's where we're at. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Please like and share it. Please share it with someone else. You can contact me, Patriot Trainer at protonmail.com. This is the Patriot Trainer. I'll see you next time.